In 2007, 2008, the fashion at the time was for everybody to buy shares. People broke their savings accounts. People took their life savings. People borrowed from the banks. Even banks gave people loans to buy their shares. That was the fashion in 2007, 2008. And today those bank shares are worthless. So many people are still reeling from the pain of losing their life savings. They don't even know what to do. Today, the dividends they receive are not even worth anything. I'm sure there's so many people like that out there. So today, we have an expert who will be talking to us about stocks, shares, and bonds, and what to do with your worthless shares. While some of those corporate organizations have gone ahead into new projects, banks are buying banks and not even caring to pay dividends to their shareholders. I mean, meaningful dividends to their shareholders. We're going to empower you with information today. Next time when banks offer their shares, you'll know exactly what to do. My guest is a professional economist and banking system consultant, BAc First Class, PhD, Economics, 1989. He is also a former university lecturer, a world banker, an investment banker, and a former senior economic advisor to the president. He's the chief consultant, B. Adedipe Associates, Health Limited, since 1996. His name is Dr. Biodun Adedipe. Anyway, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And then you'll get to be empowered with information. You're welcome back. Dr. Biodun, thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
My pleasure, yeah.
The easiest place to start would have been what is stocks, shares, and bonds, but let's not start there. Let's start from where is biting Nigerians the hardest. So many people, you heard, like I said in my intro, broke their savings accounts, broke their fixed deposits, got loans from the banks to buy shares.
Yeah.
That was in 2007, 2008. A lot of people had expected that with the dividends they were going to receive, it would be something they would eat deep into their retirement and they wouldn't have to work again. But so many people today, the story is different. What happened?
That's a very, very important issue you just raised. Yeah. Not only important, but very fundamental, given the nature of stock markets.
Yes.
Now, the first thing to note there is that the stock market is long-term in nature, which means when you want to invest in such a market, it's not a place where you expect return within a short period of time. But most of those that invested in the Nigerian stock market between 2007 to 2008, as you said, were thinking short-term and not long-term. So ideally, you don't break a short-term investment in order to invest long-term because they serve two different purposes. That is number one. Then number two, the banks at that time were also, quote and unquote, desperate to increase their capital. And so they came out with very interesting advertisements, some saying that, look, in a matter of a few years, your investment in their institution can bring 1,000% return. So, and of course, that took many retail investors, I would say, to the wire. They just kind of took everything they had and pumped into the market, forgetting that the market really doesn't work in the manner of only dividend. So when an investment banker tells you that, look, you will realize this huge percentage return on your investment, he is looking at two things. One is your dividend that you receive. The second is the appreciation of the price of that share, which means if it appreciates and you now sell, the gain you will make between the price at which you bought and the price at which you sold, if added to the dividends you receive every year within the period you held the share, then you can begin to compare that with the amount you invested at the beginning. Yes. Many people did not understand that. They were only carried away by how huge the return investment put before them by those banks were. Then, of course, there was also the bankers themselves. Now, what the bankers did is also historically not peculiar to Nigeria. In fact, we normally call it the usual manner of bankers behaving stupidly, where there is a whole lot of money around, and they're only becoming wiser where money is not easy to get. So when there's a lot of money around to make, bankers also become careless in lending. And that was what most of our bankers also did. So they gave loans to people who could not afford the kind of amounts they offered them. And so you now will find somebody sitting quietly in his office, minding his own business. A banker walks in and says, I can give you 500 million naira to do what? To buy shares.
Buy shares?
Exactly. So, and the fellow is like, 500 million naira to buy shares? And they put before him how much money he can make within a short period of time. So the fellow gets too carried away without even thinking of his own capacity to repay the loan. And neither does he think that if I fail to repay it, what happens? So everybody thought that the way things were, that the sun would never set. And that's another perspective to the stock market. Now the stock market behaves like the sun. It sets and then it rises. So if you invest in it without thinking that someday the sun will set, then you run into a problem that your expectation will be completely different than what you find yourself confronted with in the stock market. Now, as rightly said, many bought shares that became worthless in a matter of time.
And over the years, the shares haven't increased.
Certainly. Now,
so will it, before we go, will it ever increase? Will it ever rise?
The interesting thing about the stock market is this. You have the hope that the price of a stock will go up.
So you live on
in
hope.
the long term.
You live on hope.
Exactly.
That would be in the fourth generation.
Exactly. Now, if you look today at where our stock market was 20 years ago, and there are charts to show that, where the market is today is higher than where it was 20 years ago. But now the proviso is this for every investor. It will depend on the fact that the share of the company that you bought, that particular company is still in existence today. So that's another dimension to it. Which means you only benefit from your investment in the stock market if the company you purchase the shares remains in operation for the long term. Which means it is sustainably managed. And that is where the challenge is.
Yes.
So now, if it is sustainably managed, it means you can actually realize your investment over a long period of time. But if you look at what has happened in the last 12 months, you see a market that has dampened in Nigeria.
Yes.
If you look at the last 1 month, interestingly, you will see a market that has picked up in the last 1 month. Which means depending on the period you look at, you can see different stories unfold before your eyes.
Yes.
20 years is a market that has grown. 1 year is a market that has dampened. 1 month, that is between April and May, as we talk today, the market has improved.
Dr. Hold the thought. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Doctor, you said that when a company sells stocks, it's selling a piece of itself in exchange for cash.
That's right.
Which was basically what happened in 2007, 2008, when banks at the time were selling shares and people were busting their accounts to buy. And today those shares are worthless. And the banks have gone on to new projects. Some banks are buying banks, or we know of banks whose shares are today worthless, who bought another bank. Is there no place for integrity in all of this? When you know that people busted their life savings to buy your shares and today those shares are worthless. I know you talked about long-term investment, but where's the place for empathy and integrity in this?
Well, very, very important issue you raised here. Yes. And especially because it brings up the fact that when you buy shares in the stock market, and that is why this program is so important, for people to understand that the position you are taking is that of somebody who will bear the most risk.
That is the person who buys the shares.
It's actually the one who takes the most risk in that organization, which means you are at both ends of the pendulum. When the company makes a lot of money and the profit is high enough for them to pay dividend, you can get so much. But when the company also makes a loss, you might end up receiving nothing. And unfortunately, if the company also collapses, it then means that first people to be taken care of are its creditors. So once those creditors are paid, if the company ends up with nothing left, then you walk away with an empty pocket. Now, that is something people need to understand when you go out to buy shares of any company that is publicly listed. Yes. So now, bringing that to the second issue of our banks, incidentally, I happen to be a victim of that as well.
Okay.
Despite that, yes, I consult in that industry, but the fact of it was that, yes, I bought the shares of this particular bank, which, like you said earlier on, we don't need to mention names.
Yes.
Now, when the crisis came, which of course was a global phenomenon, but affected us also badly. Now, that particular bank found itself overnight in a lot of problem loans, and that is to say loans it gave out to people that it was now unable to collect. Now, that is a major factor in banking that erodes the capital. And when the capital is eroded, that means that bank is laid bare. In fact, we call it technical insolvency. Okay, it is still open. The shop is still open. People still bring in their deposits, but you can say it's just a shell of itself. So now, that brings in the central bank as the apex regulatory body in banking. That will now say, yes, you are a listed bank, quite all right, but this bank has not been well managed. So it is either the current owners bring in fresh capital injection, which means either they go and sell new shares, which nobody will buy at that point in time.
I was coming to that.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody will be willing to buy at that time. Or alternatively, they will have to look for new owners that will inject money into the bank and then possibly replace the management as well and take over. So now when that happens, then it will affect people like me that suffered in 2008. And what was it like? A new bank walks in and buys the troubled bank, and then in the process of exchange of their shares, you find the share you owe in one bank going at a ratio of 1 to 18 in some instances. So maybe you had 18,000 shares in the troubled bank. In the exchange of the shares, you end up having only 1,000 shares. So invariably, now you are a member of a new bank, the new owner. Yes. So because of the units that you have, being so few relative to the volume you had in the bank that was troubled and cheaply bought over, you now find that the dividend that comes to you amounts to nothing. And let me tell you a scenario here. Very interesting one. Of course, it hurt me quite well. Now, I became shareholder of this new bigger bank that bought the troubled one. And the number of shares I now own there, very few. Invariably, when they paid me dividend, they paid in dollars. But you receive dividend warrant reading $1.54. So $1.54 is my dividend.
Not even up to $2.
Not even up to $2. Now, when I received that, I laughed over it. I said, look, clearly here there's no return on my investment. But I now say, okay, let me even put it to test. So I sent it to my bankers to pay into my account. The bankers returned the warrant and said the value of the dividend on it is less than the trouble of converting that paper into money on my behalf. So I just collected the paper and it is lying there. The money is useless. So then we remain with the bank in question. So, of course, that brings the reality that when people want to buy shares, it's not something you just wake up and buy because of what we call hype. We call it hype.
But there was a lot of hype in 2007, 2008.
And a lot of that happens in the stock market. So you cannot follow the hype and what they tell you about some stocks. There's also something we call siren stocks. Siren stocks are those that everybody wants to buy because there is so much noise in the market about that stock. That was what happened mostly with the stocks of banks at the time in question.
There was siren noise.
There were siren stocks.
Siren
most
stocks,
of them.
yes.
So everybody wanted to buy this.
Hold the thought. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about stocks, bonds, shares. Doc, the banks are going to go back to the stock market to sell shares again.
That's right.
Considering the fact that interest on fixed deposits have dropped.
Yes.
Do you think anybody would want to buy shares again?
Well, there are two important things I will say here. Number one is that if you want to buy shares, you don't just walk into the market and buy any share that catches your fancy. There are professionals in that market, stockbrokers and several other capital market operators that you can approach to guide you as to which stock to buy. Now, there are some analysis they will do to present to you a suggestion of which stocks to buy, which means you don't just wake up and buy every available stock that is in the market for sale. That is number one. Now, the second thing here is that relating to what we said earlier on in terms of it being a long-term investment.
Yes.
And we always counsel people, don't borrow money to buy shares. Because if you borrow money to buy shares, you have to pay interest on the loan. And of course, it means whatever dividend or appreciation in the price of that share that you will realize over time, if it cannot match the interest you are going to pay on the loan, that is not worthwhile. So, and that is why generally we say it is not wise to borrow to buy shares, which means you can switch your investment. You know, there is nothing wrong with switching your deposit into the stock market. But when you make that decision, it must be guided. And that is very, very important for people to understand. And then they should also, as I said earlier on, see it as a long-term investment. Okay. So which means you are looking at a stock, a company, maybe a bank, as we said in this instance, just for discussion purposes, that is well managed. And that means you must also be reading the news on the stock market. For example, now, every listed stock on a quarterly basis, they come to present their report for the quarter. And when they do that, they also do what is called facts behind the figures, which means the management must tell you how they achieved the result they are presenting to you as an investor and to the general public. Secondly, they must also tell that public and investing public what they will do to ensure that company is properly managed and achieve results. So and that is also why on occasions, when a company issues what they call a profit warning, a profit warning is to tell you ahead of time, before I announce my result, that look, the profit I made is less than what we expected. And once such news gets in the market, people begin to dump the share. Dumping means they want to sell.
Yes.
And unfortunately also, when many of us sell at the same time, it causes the price to go down. So now, these are the peculiarities of that market. It is not a market to just wake up and say, I want to invest in. You need to get some professional advice. And that is what I will tell people on this program.
There were instances where banks actually gave people loan to buy their shares, which at the point at that time caused the share prices to look like it was quite high. Mm-hmm. And when these shares fell, most of these people now told the banks, look, you gave me money to buy these shares. Okay, this is the money, so take the shares back. And the banks refused.
Right.
Why?
Now, because it comes to the issue of integrity that you raised, you know, I didn't say much about that.
Yes, you did not.
It comes to the issue of integrity because ideally, as a professional, the banker knows that when I give you a loan to buy shares, there is an agreement that I will sell the shares to clean out the loan account.
And the interest.
If the price of the share drops below a certain threshold, it's always in that agreement. But most of the banks that had this kind of situation did not sell the stocks when the prices dropped below the threshold. So it then became penny stocks. And when they became penny stocks, they now were asking the borrowers, pay me back my money. And the borrower said, look, which money should I pay you? That's the stock with you. You had the custody of the stock anyway. Go sell it, and then you can clean out my account. And so on both sides, yes, the investor lost money, quite all right, because ideally, if the bank sold the shares at the agreed price, that threshold, they should be able to cover the loan amount and possibly still have something left for that investor to go home with. So on both sides, there were losses. Yes. The investor lost, even the banker that gave the loan also lost. And that was what compounded the problem. People did not do what they were supposed to do.
Do you think that in Nigeria we have insider tradings? Because you find that a lot of people dumped their shares long before those shares crashed because it looked like they knew what was going to happen and they dumped their shares. So do you think we have insider trading going on?
I think it has reduced significantly because the Securities and Exchange Commission actually recognizes that as a sanctionable offense. And they do sanction those that they have evidence.
If you discover them, if you find them.
Yeah, but of course, on an ongoing basis, they also keep strengthening their own capacity to be able to discover that and then sanction appropriately. But today, SEC is even more particular in that regard. So I think the incidence has reduced significantly, as of today, as compared to then, some 8-9 years ago. Now, the other side to it is that as a market watcher, and that's the way we put it.
Yes.
Once you put your money in a stock, you must not only watch the market, you must watch the particular stock you put your money in.
Sleep with one eye open.
Exactly, keep one eye open. And then coming to the issue you raised earlier on, the distinction between shares, stocks, and bonds.
Yes.
Okay. Now, stocks is a generic name for financial instruments in the stock market.
Yes.
But when we now come to shares, shares they come in different categories. The ordinary share is what you and I will readily buy and find in the market. And that, as I said earlier on, is the one that bears the brunt when a company is poorly managed. But at the same time, is the one that also benefits the most when the company is well managed. So that is what they call the ordinary shares. Now, that is the area where people must understand that when you buy shares, you are vulnerable, and at the same time, you also are in a possibility of making good money. That is ordinary shares. There's also the one we call preference shares. Now, preference shares are similar to ordinary shares, but only to some extent. Because in their own case, what they receive as dividend is fixed. So quit them means that once the company makes profit, the preference shareholder will get something back. Okay? But not all companies issue preference shares. So only a few of them issue that. So it's not something you can get readily available in the market to buy. Now, there is also, going to the other side, how companies also raise money, and that's where bonds come. Now, bonds are of two types. There is the public bond, which is issued by governments, whether it is federal, state, or local government. And then we have the private bonds, which are the ones issued by big companies, like those listed on the stock exchange. Now, with respect to bonds, these companies, when they issue them, or the government, as the case may be, they raise some money that they require to either execute some projects or programs, whatever it is. Now, when they raise the money, it is usually for a specified period of time. Unlike when you buy ordinary shares, we describe ordinary shares as perpetuities, which means there's no maturity date. Insofar as I said earlier on, that company is still in operation, you remain a shareholder.
Yes.
But when you buy a bond, as a bond holder, it is for a given period of time. It could be 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, 24, 30 years. Some even go up to 50 in some other countries. Okay? That means if I put my money in it now, I won't get the money invested back until maybe 20 years' time. It's a 20-year bond. But every half year, that is every 6 months, I will get interest, which is called coupon. So that will be my return on the investment. But most of the time, that is more or less guaranteed. Now, why bonds will look better than shares is because, one, you have a fixed return on your investment, which is that coupon we call interest rate. Then secondly, if anything happens to the company and it folds up,
you get
whatever assets it has will be sold,
and your money will
then your money will have precedence over that of the ordinary shareholder. So you will get your money back. So you are treated just like any bank that lends money to a customer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abiodun. I am so grateful for this information you have given to us. And final question.
Yes.
From the top of your head, if somebody walked up to you to say, those banks are coming out again with shares and they want us to buy. From the top of your head, what would you say to the person? Yes, no?
I will say yes, but be careful which one you put your money into.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And any fallout from this, I'll come back to you, and I hope you'll honor our invitation.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Now, viewers, you've been empowered with information on what stocks, bonds, shares are. And very soon, banks or companies will come out again to sell their shares. Well, from the top of my head, be careful. Now you've been empowered with information to look at those fine lines and make sure you look for an expert in this field to educate you so that you'll know where to put your money, so that you can sleep with your 2 eyes closed. Well, that's our topic on the UD Factor today. You have a wonderful week ahead of you, and God bless you.